So this morning I wanted to look at this passage in John 11 about Lazarus. So Jesus has come to be with Lazarus' sisters, Martha and Mary, and we know that Lazarus is going to rise again, but this is the moment where he's still dead, he's in the tomb, and Jesus is with the sisters, Martha and Mary. And so although there's hope coming and there's light ahead, this is the moment of darkness. This is the moment of pain and of mourning for Martha and for Mary. And we can see in this passage that we all respond differently when we face challenging times, because we look at how Martha responds, and she says, when she encounters Jesus, she says, "But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." She says, "I believe that you're the Messiah." She's sort of declaring the truth and scriptures and the goodness of God to Jesus. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it feels like in difficult times people say that to you, but God works all things for the good of those who love him. All things work together for good. You think, yeah, but I'm still having a really, don't know what I can say on this, really difficult time. And that doesn't necessarily help you in that moment. When I was, we were living in India and I was pregnant with my first child, Brave, and I was feeling rough. I'd be throwing up on the side of the roads, throwing up, it's not even loos there that you're throwing up to, you're throwing up into potholes, trying really hard to make sure you're sick, doesn't go on your feet. And just like everything just felt awful. I'd arrive at work on my scooter, having probably thrown up on the side of the road, get into work, be in a meeting, sometimes run out of the meetings to go and throw up. I was just feeling really rough. And a new girl came to the office who had been off on maternity leave and came back, and she'd heard that I was pregnant, and everyone in the office had been telling me most days how awful I looked. They thought, if you're having a girl, you look awful, so they all were sure that I was having a girl because they said I looked so awful. And this new girl said to me, "Oh, you're pregnant, how are you feeling?" I was like, "Actually, not feeling great." And she was like, "What? Have you not been declaring that God is with you, that he will take away your sickness, that you will have a healthy pregnancy, that you will not feel sick, have you not been rebuking that?" I was like, no. She's like, "You need to read this book about supernatural childbirth and how to believe that God is with you through all these things." I was like, okay. And I left. I did buy the book, but I still felt really rough and then felt slightly inadequate. They didn't have quite the faith that I needed to continue my pregnancy. Actually, I think this is kind of what Martha is being in that situation. What she's saying is totally the truth. She's speaking the truth and she's got this faith and hope. But it's very different to how Mary then responds. Mary goes to Jesus, falls at his feet and weeps. And actually, this real rawness of Mary brings out a totally different response in Jesus. Jesus, who is telling Mary, "Yes, I am the resurrection, I'm the life," actually doesn't say any of those things to Mary, but he falls, he's with her and he weeps with her. It says he's deeply troubled and he cries with her. Because actually sometimes in our pain, we don't need people to tell us everything's going to be okay, even though that might be the truth. But in that moment, sometimes we just need to know that Jesus is with us in our pain, that he feels it, and that he's there with us. And in the summer, having felt like I'd done really well to survive the first lockdown, I thought I'd done pretty well with 3 kids at home and homeschooling. Miles was having a great time as a plumber, out at work every day. And I thought I had done pretty well. And then the summer hit, and I actually hit the lowest moment that I think I've ever had in my life, maybe a kind of emotionally and mentally. And don't worry, I have also read about Brené Brown, and I know this is not the context for sharing all of the story and the true vulnerability of it. But in that moment of kind of darkness and pain, what I did want to feel was Jesus with me, feeling my pain with me. Not necessarily saying everything's going to be all right, although I wanted to hold on to that, but I wanted to know that he was with me in that place. And the image that I held on to was him wounded, having risen from the cross. Because actually it's that image that he is broken for us and that he feels our pain with us. And that's the image that I held on to. And I think in this passage we see that that is how Jesus is with us. When we're troubled, when we're in pain, when we're mourning, when we're just struggling, he cries with us. He feels our pain with us. And that's the compassion of God. But I think in this passage, what we also see is what friendship is really about. Because these people, Lazarus, Martha, and Mary, they're his friends. And Jesus obviously loves having them as his friends. You know, they're not disciples. And when they're talked about, they're always talked about being Jesus' friends. And I think that's because Jesus sees friendship as such an important thing. And one of the things that I've really felt about lockdown is actually one of the greatest gifts is friendship. I could do without pubs, restaurants, even gyms, although Miles would kill me if I said that. But the thing that I really miss, the thing that I love is being with good friends. There's nothing quite like those moments of being able to laugh and cry with friends and do things and be together and enjoy each other's company. And I think Jesus is showing how much he loves that, and he created us to be in those relationships and have those relationships. That actually sometimes in those relationships we might be like Martha, and we might be saying, you know, whatever the situation, Jesus, you know, there is hope in Jesus, who is the resurrection and the life, and there's more to come. But sometimes we're in that Mary place, and actually what we need is our friends to come and mourn with us and cry with us and be with us. And one of the moments that most encouraged me and felt like this is what friendship is about was when I was really struggling in the summer, and a friend just knocked on my door one Saturday morning, and she'd driven from London, when you're allowed to drive from London, and she came with a bunch of flowers and an ASOS voucher, because she said everybody needs some retail therapy. And we went for a walk together, and just being with someone who I felt totally unjudged by, but loved by, who was just with me and present with me in the place that I was at, was an amazing comfort. And I think this passage tells us that Jesus is with us in our pain. He is there, present with us. He feels it. And we don't have to always respond in the, it's okay, it's all going to be great. Sometimes we can just cry, we can be real and let that raw, authentic pain come out. But we have to remember that there is hope. You know, Lazarus does rise again, and Jesus does rise again, and we do have hope. But that doesn't take away from the moments where we're struggling and it's a challenge to say, this is where I'm at, and I need people to stand with me. And I just want to end with one of the things that's been the highlight of my year so far, which was Amanda Gorman's poem at the inauguration. And she started her poem, it started like this: when day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? And she says in the middle, so while we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? Because in this poignant ending, she says, the new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.